Spider-Man prices are crashing and players are cashing in. Welcome back to the weekly installment of the Top 10. These are the hottest selling cards in Magic the Gathering this week. From September 26th to October 3rd of 2025, we got a lot to talk about. Welcome back, everyone. I'm mtgnews, and I want to thank you and welcome you back to another installment of the Top 10. Now, before we get started in today's video, let's not forget that if you're shopping for any of these amazing Magic the Gathering cards, Spider-Man, Universes Beyond, that I do have a TCG Player affiliate link. It is found in the description of all my videos. Click that link and you're helping the channel. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at our number 10 card this week. It is Spider-Punk, and this one is the Borderless Edition. Now, I've noticed that Spider-Punk prices have been coming down, so have all of you, but it's very interesting to see how players will buy a fancier copy as the prices fall. 1,600 sales or $11,760 of sales action is very comparable to what we saw last week with Spider-Punk, but in this case, as the price fell, we had players who felt justified in buying the higher kind of quality, harder to find Borderless Edition. And that just shows you that players recognize amazing cards and they still want to get the better copy if they can afford it. Now, of course, Spider-Punk looks amazing. Love the artwork. 2 casting costs, legendary human hero, Spider, and he's a 2/1 with Riot. Other Spiders you control have Riot. Spells, your abilities can't be countered, and of course, damage can't be prevented. This card is amazingly powerful, and surprisingly, I haven't really come across this yet in any Friday Night Magic matches or on Arena yet, but I'm waiting for it. Now, our number 9 card this week is Iron Spider, and this is the Stark upgrade. This takes the number 9 position with 1,845 sales or $2,000 and some change of total sales action. And that's because, again, like every other Spider-Man card, these things are just like falling in price. The average price for this card is now down to $1.13. Let's not forget that into September, this thing was still holding around $17, $18. It has completely collapsed down, and it's almost embarrassing to see how low this card has gone. But the more interesting story, I think, is not that the card has dropped so much in price, it's that it's still a highly playable card, people. This is a 3 casting cost, by the way, epic artwork. And we've got a legendary artifact creature, Spider Hero. This thing's a 2/3 with Vigilance. It can put +1/+1 counter on each artifact, creature, and or vehicle you control, and remove 2 +1/+1 counters. Do not phase on this card. Think about where artifacts could show up in future sets. This is a card to buy now. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our number 8 card. This is Eddie Brock Borderless Edition. Now, this card comes in around $12 and change per copy. It had 1,920 sales, and that's going to be $24,672 of total sales action. Now, Eddie Brock, again, is another one of those cards that up until the middle of September was going for around the $40, $50 mark on pre-order. It wasn't massively sold, but yes, it did have sales, just like Mox Jasper. And of course, this card has continued to trend downward. There are cheaper versions. You can just get the regular version of Eddie Brock for around $7, but people are buying this version. Like Spider-Punk, they are going for the fancier version, expecting this card's price to trip around and kind of come back. Now, we got a 3 casting cost with 3 other. Now, this thing is a 5/5. When you see this bad boy, you realize he's got Menace, Trample, and he's got Haste. Whenever Venom attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, draw X cards. This is a very powerful card again. It has to get going, but in the right deck build, this is going to be something that players are going to have to contend with. And as the price falls, players are buying the better quality copies. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next card. This is the Soul Stone. This one, again, a lot of people thought was just going to die off down to $30. The sales are telling us otherwise. 2,277 sales is another $180,000 of total sales action. Last week, we had almost 400,000. So between that, we're now at about $500,000 of secondary market movement with the Soul Stone. People are still solidifying positions. Cards are still out there. And of course, with all the tariffs and things, we are seeing ourselves with a whole bunch of cards being sold and bought out and not being restocked. That is something players are going to have to contend with in the future. Remember, if it doesn't get a restock, the price is only going to go up. Now, the Soul Stone is a 1 black, 1 other. I got to admit, it is an amazing card to me. It has Indestructible. It's a mana rock with no drawbacks. And of course, it also has the Harness ability, which exiles a creature, lets you bring a creature card back from your graveyard. every time, every single turn, like over and over and over again. Yes, I've done it a few times. It can be epically fun to see this thing go off. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next card. And we still have Spider-Man. This is Hydro Man, the Fluid Felon. I'm actually a little surprised to see this card here this week. It takes the number 6 position, 2,350 sales, $1,500 of total sales action. Now, the question I have for a lot of people when I looked around was like, why are we buying Hydro Man now? But then I realized the price is so cheap at a 67-cent average that maybe players are seeing something that Moxman's not. Because as we get closer and we see where this card dropped off, again, like everything at the end of spoiler season, mid-September, we saw these cards all just start plummeting in price. But we're seeing a real pickup in the volume of sales moving as players cash in on these crashing prices. Now, the Hydro Man is a 2 blue casting cost. It's a legendary creature, elemental villain. Remember Elemental 2, guys. Synergy. It's a 2/2. Whenever you cast a blue spell, if Hydro Man is a creature, it gets a +1/+1 till end of turn. At the beginning of your end step, untap Hydro Man, and until your next turn, he becomes a land. So he gets to untap, and he becomes a land until your next turn. That's kind of nice if you need the extra mana for counter spells. Don't discount him. But of course, let's jump right over to Sandman, the Shifting Scoundrel. He takes the number 5 position with 2,580 sales this week. Again, this is a card I noted in preseason, right? When we had the pre-orders coming up, we had spoiler season. I said, I don't know, when this guy gets into the game, I think he's going to be something. But as you can tell, nothing happened with this card, and it dropped down like a rock. Now, what do I mean by a rock? Well, this thing was at 20 bucks, and then it fell down to 10, 5, 3, 2. Hey, it's at 55 cents. What can we say? But is Hydro Man, does he have a chance? And does, of course, the Sandman have a chance of coming back? These two cards have a lot going on. The Shifting Sands, yeah, he costs 3. Sandman's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Sandman can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and return this card to, and a target land, from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So it's kind of nice that he can be regenerated. It comes back from your graveyard and a target land. Very interesting for landfall decks. Don't underestimate this stuff. That's where you're going to see some action. And green is heavy right now. So we got the number 4 card. Behold the Sinister Six. 2,641 sales, or $7,923 of total sales action. This one not only has commander playability, but I have utilized this myself in a couple of standard games to test it out. I still think it costs too much mana to make it work, but at least it's worth trying because it's $3 a card. It's got some great little game effect you can use, and although it costs a lot, later in the game, this can really save you. So let's not forget that this thing is a 1 black mana, which means it can be splashed into a lot of different decks. Return up to 6 target creature cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. That means this card fits into a whole bunch of tribal themed decks that players don't really think about until the last minute. This card has got some game, and it's going to see play later, so you might as well get copies while they're cheap. Now let's go over and take a look at our next card. It is Electro, the Assaulting Battery, which means we have a new number 1 card this week. Electro took the top spot last week, and this week he has 2,762 sales, or $13,257.60 of total sales action. I'd also like to make a note here that if you take a look, this card also had quite a lot of borderless sales as well, just not enough to make it to the top 10. I mean, the price is still falling. Players are waiting to see if this thing goes even lower, and that's where we're going to find ourselves. This thing has an average price of $4.80. And the Assaulting Battery Electro, well, he is seeing gameplay, and I have faced off against this one a few times. So let's take a closer look at Electro and see what you're getting for your $5. Now, Electro is a 3 casting cost, 2 red and 1 other. When we look at this legendary creature, human villain, it has flying. You don't lose unspent red mana as phases end, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you get to add a red mana. When Electro leaves the battlefield, you may pay X. When you do, he deals X damage to target player. This can be a crazy late game effect that you do not want to mess with. Keep an eye on Electro. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at our number 2 card this week. It is the Multiversal Passage. As this card has dropped in value, the sales have been upticking. That is players taking advantage of dropping prices after official release. Now we got $24,198 of sales action. This card's going for under $10 per copy now. And again, just like we talked about last week, this is kind of a shock land for all instances, but it can be played pretty much anywhere where you're going to be needing a nice constant flow of mana because this comes into play and gets the job done. Now, when we're looking at this card a little bit closer, though, let's not forget that this one here in Standard, I have seen it played, but not as often as I thought I would. Now, the Multiversal Passage, by the way, great artwork again. When we take a closer look at the card, it's just a land. It isn't an actual type. You can't fetch it. You can't do crazy things. But as the land enters, you choose a basic land type. Then you may pay 2 life. And if you don't, it comes into play tapped. So this is a shock land of a different name. The land is of the chosen type. So after it's out there, it's out there. It's just the fact it has that little bit of a drawback that kills it and makes it a little bit worse than a shock land. But at the same time, it comes in as anything you need. And that's what's going to make it see gameplay, all right? Let's go to the number 1 card this week. And it is Spectacular Spider-Man Borderless Edition. And yes, this card continues to fall. It's $7 and change, but I'm seeing this thing everywhere. 3,590 sales, $32,171.44 of total sales action. Now, when I'm looking at this card, I'm looking at where we're playing it. It is finding a home because of what it does, not itself as a creature, okay? The market here and the average. The average at 723, the market at 586. It's anywhere in between there right now, depending on where you're shopping for the card. But I'm looking at it and I say to myself, it's a 2 casting cost. It is very easy to use. It has flash, and of course, you can gain flying for 1, but really it's the second one. Sacrifice Spectacular Spider-Man, and creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible. That's the effect that players want in Standard. That's what saves token armies, and this is why this card is actually going to rebound quicker than people realize and gain back above $10. That's my prediction. Let's talk about the market. This is that time when a set releases where opportunity, it's knocking. It is opening the door and allowing players to buy cards from Spider-Man super cheap. People may not like the Spider-Man theme, but the card mechanics on these cards, they do have synergy that is going to work. When you look at cards like the one that offers the landfall ability, right? Being able to bring back the shifting scoundrel, and you bring him back with a land. That land will trigger everything in landfall. Add in the Ice Till Explorer, you can see where this would go. And players are buying these cards on just like an on sale. Here is 50% off or more to get these cards. It's nuts. Eddie Brock dropping like a rock like this, being under 20 bucks and still falling when you look at that Borderless Edition one. And then of course the regular edition is like what, $8 or something, and it's still falling. These are great. Multiversal Passage. It's a highly playable card. You may not like the Spider-Man theme, but some of these cards are going to get played. They're going to be playable. And then later on, you may kick yourself if you missed out on some cheap cards with a real knack to like have some fun with them. I'm loving the fact these cards are so cheap. And I wish there wasn't so many tariffs stopping me from ordering cards right now. And then I guess what? Canada Post is on strike here in Canada. So we can't have any deliveries. So I have no way of getting the cards even if I bought them right now. And locally, everything's gone. So it's kind of crazy to see where these will go. But for those guys out there who have access to these cards, there is so many good deals right now. And it's because of that negativity. That grinding negativity you see for Spider-Man just up against the wall. Everyone's mad and like, There are those feelings. But I'm looking at the cards saying some of these cards are going to be really good. And they're going to have a long lifespan. Especially after the anger and frustration fades a couple years from now. And some of these cards rebound. I'm going to try to pick up what I can. Hopefully these strikes end and I can get in there and get some of these things out of the way because there are some good deals out there. There's some fun stuff that I can't wait to get my hands on. And it looks like a lot of the market agrees because the sales, now I'll say the sales are a lot lower than I would have anticipated on a second week release, but that's the negativity of Spider-Man. But there are people out there casting in a hook from their fishing rod saying, I wonder what good deals I can bring up to hold on to. Spectacular Spider-Man, come on. Given everything hexproof and indestructible, you can't go wrong. The Soul Stone. People predicted would just drop like right down. No, it is having a very slow slide because the sales are so rocking consistent. People don't want it to drop that low or they wouldn't be buying it at the prices they're buying it at. Either it's being floated up because just so many people want to have it and they don't know what's going to happen later, or there are a lot of speculators and investors, which I know there are some, but there may be more than anticipated getting into this market and it's keeping that card very buoyant right now. I also still feel that because the Soul Stone is hard to find, that when things, get going and people move on to Avatar, Lorwyn, Eclipse comes along and just blows our minds, the Soul Stone is going to come back around. It's one of those things people talk about. They're going to start buying it quietly, and it's just going to keep going up, is my fear, before other people have a chance to buy it, because they thought it was going to go lower. And thinking and hoping something goes lower, you're waiting for this certain price range, It's better to go with a card price you find acceptable in the hobby you play than wait for the best possible deal that you think is going to happen. Because a lot of times it does not happen, things rebound, and before you know it, it's out of reach and you're kind of bitter and angry about it. Frustrated as I would be. Anyway, thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out today. Let's not forget that tomorrow is, of course, the Reserve List Top 10 and my live stream, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. I hope you guys can all come and hang out with me. See you then. Have a great day. Welcome back to the end of the video. Now, what you're seeing right now is all the Patreon names go flying by, my YouTube membership members, the people who support the channel. The ones who stand up and say, yep, I love what I see here and I want to keep having you do it, Moxman. So I want to take that moment every day to thank these people for allowing this to happen. The journey of Magic the Gathering and being able to share it with all of you is just so awesome every day. So thanks again. Don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow and have an awesome day today, everyone. I'm just going to focus on one thing here. Spider-Man prices are tanking. The singles are tanking. It's happening. And people are buying them. What do you think happens if one of those cards goes off and you can't get it because now you need it for something? Just saying. You can guess how the story's going to go. The Soul Stone. A lot of people said that card was going to dip down to be like a $30 card, right? It's going to drop, Moxman. It's just going to keep going. And I'll be honest, it still could. There's nothing stopping it. I'm not the be-all, end-all. But history has told me that cards like this, the way they work, especially if Wizards doesn't recreate them too quickly. They don't reprint them and put them back into circulation. And you have a set that people are going to ignore and move on from. Okay? But the original artwork will be reproduced at some other point that probably won't say Soul Stone, but it'll come back around again. When you look at this card, plus the others that are likely going to come in the next year, and the year after that as we explore more into Marvel, do you really think the prices aren't going to rebound? You really think that you can't use the harness ability for something? Like, come on. People aren't thinking it through. And I will take, again, every opportunity. If they go cheap enough or they get to the price level I think is acceptable for my patrons, I'll try to grab some of these things like en masse and try to hold them for the channel in case they do spike. We'll have the opportunity to have these things cheaper that we can just send out to people. Crazy stuff, guys. I just think that Soul Stone is the card that I'm still watching, man. I'm still watching it. Although, I'll be honest, if you want to play devil's advocate, I'm on the other side of this still saying, I still think that the Strixhaven card is going to go somewhere. Remember that the Library of Alexandria, look at the Biblioplex. I still think the Biblioplex has gameplay. I use it in Commander decks, and it does help me. People just don't see what I see. That one has never panned out, by the way, at all. Guys, thanks again.